said, is this a good movie to watch with my 10-year-old daughter and my grandmother who is a Catholic?
How did you approach getting into the character of John Landau? I wanted to know a bit more about what's it like to get under the skin of a character who's still living and you've met him. What does that feel like?
It always feels quite impossible at first, because often you're nothing like the person, and you have to become them and inhabit them, like in a way that is accurate and fully embodied. So it's daunting, and at the same time, when it's a real person, there's a wealth of source material that you use, and that becomes your kind of toolbox, and you study things endlessly, you read everything, you do everything you can to gain a visceral understanding of the person. And then I spent a lot of time with John, I spent a lot of time with Bruce and John on tour, watching John watch Bruce play, just observing quiet moments. And then you do it until something starts to happen and it takes possession of you and you're ready to walk onto the set as that person.
And were you ever in the same room as him, the man himself, when you were in character as John?
Yeah. Bruce and John were there almost every day. The thing is, if you're doing your job the way you need to, which is, pretty locked in and focused on what you're doing, everything else disappears. Like that, these cameras aren't here, none of this is here. You're in the imaginary circumstances. So if I didn't feel in command enough of it to let go of everything and be free, then it would have been very nerve-wracking to have Bruce and John on set.
Do you remember the first time you went to the movie theater and who you went with and what was the film?
I do remember, this is by no means the first, I remember going to see Glory with my mom, the Ed Zwick movie with Denzel and Matthew Broderick, and I remember just being completely blown away by that. But I was a teenager by then, that stands out to me.
Obviously, Faye isn't actually a real character, but is potentially a composite of some of the boss's loves, but you play it so authentically. What did you kind of lean on to make this character feel so authentic?
Honestly, the script, because I think that Bruce and Scott had conversations, the conversations that were needed about who Faye needed to be in that time, to show that time correctly and to show what Bruce was going through correctly. And I think that kind of imbued the part in the script with something very, very grounded and very authentic. And Scott added all of these details, like her being a circus performer, circus girl, and the fact that she has a daughter and she's had a failed relationship before. And we had talked about other things that she might have gone through, and places she might have lived before kind of coming back to settle in Asbury Park. And yeah, I think that he had such a clear intention of who she needed to be, and it all became very apparent on the page.
What can you say about, obviously working with Jeremy Allen White? Was it kind of an immediate chemistry? Obviously you show so much chemistry on the screen, or was it something that kind of happened on set as you got to know each other?
I think it happened on set. I think it's just, there's like a nice thing that happens when you get brilliant direction. You kind of know where you need to be and what you need to do and what energy you need to bring into the scene. And Scott doesn't really like rehearsing. So we were kind of thrown into these scenes together pretty quickly. And I think that he just had a lot of faith, hopefully and thankfully, in his casting, because I think Jeremy and I both knew what was required of us in those moments. And Bruce is obviously going through something very different to what Faye is going through throughout the film. And I think that creates like a really interesting balance and tension in their characters that I had a lot of fun with. I had a lot of fun playing that with Jeremy, because he is so wonderful and present and focused and disciplined in inside of Bruce in that moment.
And what would you say about Faye as kind of a grounding presence for obviously Springsteen as he's on his meteoric rise to fame?
Well, I think she just sees him. I think she's like very aware of that meteoric rise to fame. I think she is obviously a fan of his music and kind of has, you know, she knows he's super famous and talented and like a pretty kind of coveted dude. And I think there is a version of their relationship that could have worked if he, you know, had been slightly further along in his journey of kind of dealing with these ghosts from his past. And I think she sees the potential in that. But, you know, what I love about their relationship and about the story in general is that it is about two people, not about, you know, a rock star and a fan. I think it's about these two very, you know, real people with real relationship problems.
What was the first cinema experience that you remember, and who did you go with?
Oh, I don't remember my first cinema experience. I don't think I've ever been asked that before, but probably my mum. Mum and I used to go to the movies. I do remember going to see Juno when I was 10 years old with my mum and my grandmother. And we'd gotten some bad intel from my father who'd gone to see it, who fell asleep in the movie theater. And she said, "Is this a good movie to watch with my 10-year-old daughter and my grandmother, who is a Catholic?" And he said, "Yeah, should be fine." Slept through the whole thing. It was a very uncomfortable movie-going experience.